Great. So I understand that Secretary Clark cannot join us this morning, but it looks like everybody else is here. So thank you for making the time this morning. We scheduled this meeting sort of outside the regular cycle of putting together the Climate Council meeting for December, in large part because we are moving through due diligence with some of the summary documents and graphic design that we have for the Climate Action Plan, and thought it would be easiest to convene this group to take any final comments today. So before we do that, I'll share the agenda real quick, as long as I have screen privileges. There it is. We're going to approve minutes from your last meeting. We're going to spend a few minutes. Liz is going to walk through our thinking for the public meetings, which I believe at our last steering committee meeting and perhaps even at the last council meeting, we discussed the Climate Action Office's capacity with the support of CBI to hold some public meetings launching the Climate Action Plan, which we didn't do over the summer, in large part because I think we all needed a break and the summertime is not the best time for public meetings. So ahead of the legislative session, as a handoff, sort of speak to them, we are proposing some 2 online sessions. And so Liz will walk you through the thinking for that. And then we will talk about the Climate Action Plan summary and if you have any comments on that at this point. And then we'll hand that off to our consultant to finish up that work. So any other comments about the agenda before we get started? Great. Have folks had a chance to look at the minutes? Are we all good with them? Yay, thumbs up. Okay,
Yes,
great.
thanks.
Liz, I'll turn it over to you. I believe Liz and David and Sophie and I all talked about the potential dates, and so I'll let you summarize our thinking.
Yes. And I'll share my screen again. Let's see. Okay. So these are the proposed dates and times for the public meetings on the updated climate action plan. The thinking is that there will be one midday time and then also one evening time to be able to catch folks when they're available. And I think also with December, if we pick the December date, that's fine to do both that midday and evening time. And Jane, correct me if I'm wrong, but we could do like January 5th midday, January 6th evening. Like with January, we could do one or the other for midday or evening. But the idea is to December to hold that date for both of them, midday and evening. So I'll ask the steering committee, is there any preference or folks' availability here on which dates and times we select?
Are they virtual?
Yeah, so
yeah, they're virtual. Yeah.
I'll just flag that December, I can't remember exactly why, and I hoped you might, Liz, but because of David's schedule, my schedule, and Sophie's schedule, it was really hard to find consensus. And so we proposed this. This was the only day, and I believe we might have been looking at Secretary Moore's calendar and some other calendar surfing to try to find dates. And for whatever reason, because of, I think in large part because of schedules, but I can't remember the specifics, there was a hard time to reach consensus on a date in December. And so we recognize that December 16th is getting close to the holidays and that people do travel. It's the week before. I expect most people take off. And so it seemed okay. But while we had planned to hold these in December, and I think we talked about that with you all at our last meeting, because there was limited availability, there was this question to you all, in addition to what works with your schedules, do you want to hold it in December before the holidays, or do you want to hold it and wait till we're back from the holidays and really tee it up for the legislative session? And Secretary Moore, I'd just ask you if you, I think we sort of previewed when the state of the state and the legislature comes back in previous years and thought these dates were fine, but also just want to be mindful all that's happening in early January and make sure these dates could work with everybody's schedule. So that's the context, and that's why we couldn't offer more dates in December.
Yeah, I think those dates, Jane, should be before the legislature reconvenes. I expect they'll be back on the Wednesday of that week. Um, that said, that's gonna, depending on who your target audience is, and if you're thinking legislators may want to attend, I suspect that's a really busy time as they in the run up to the start of the session. So would encourage at least one of those December dates and times be in the mix for the three meetings we hold.
And right now we're only proposing two, just to clarify,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Julie. Yeah, don't worry. If you want three, we can consider it. Joey, go ahead.
Thanks. And my question is sort of aligned with what Secretary Moore is just pointing to, which is, so these are proposed to be an hour. Like, what are you thinking about as like sort of agenda, sort of focus and flow for that hour, and who participates? Is it just
Yeah,
like the overall goal is just like shine the light on the climate action plan at a high level? Just curious, just sort of the goal and the audience.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I don't imagine them quite different from what we're doing actually starting this Thursday and next Monday with the resilience implementation strategy, where in that case, because it's a administration and treasurer-led initiative, Secretary Moore and the treasurer are kicking off those events with some opening remarks, and then we're giving a high-level overview of what's in it, and then sort of a what's next. How do we move this to implementation, and what does it mean? And so they're a lot more informative than we try to be these days, where we're typically looking for a way to have responsive engagement, like asking people questions. I think that we're trying to set both the RIS ones up and ultimately these ones for the climate action plan as well to have some interactiveness and ask some questions about what's most important to you, but also trying to target people to give them where their leverage points are to help them help the plans succeed in implementation. So I would imagine similar to the way we did the other CAP online meetings, we look for counselors to kick them off. Unlike the climate office, we'd support you all in preparing slides and agenda. David would be there to facilitate, but the council would provide opening remarks and then walk through some of the high level recommendations. And again, we'd work with you all to have an agenda and talk about the kind of questions we're doing. So we'd support with capacity, but really it'd be your events. And so as once we hone in the dates, we would ask all of you to help us think about the best way to put them forward. But I really do think it's for to share with the legislature, to share with Vermonters about what's in the plan and how to move it forward. Let's start with, does anybody have a preference with doing them in this, or does anyone have, since Julie suggested that that early part of that first week of January is a busy time for legislators and they're a really key audience, I would expect for all of you. That's an assumption. You all can challenge me if you don't think they're a key audience. But assuming they are, does anyone have a problem with the Tuesday date? Like, go ahead.
Propose doing an evening session on December 16th. I think that is probably sort of enough outside, like outside of that crazy run up. And um, I think evenings is respectful of the fact that many of them also have jobs that they're engaged in when not in the legislative session, and then maybe pick a noontime session one of your January days.
One thing I wanted to note though, not that this is necessarily going to affect a huge number of people, but December 16th is in the middle of Hanukkah, so evening might actually, for some Vermonters, be a time when they're going to be with family. So
Kelly?
yeah, but otherwise, I mean, I think even just maybe both dates on December or both times on December 16th gives some options. But I was also going to ask if there's a reason not to do a time on the 16th of December and then also a time on, say, January 5th or 6th. Like, because when Liz, you know, queued it up, it sounded like, oh, we would either do both times on December 16th or pick two of the Monday, Tuesday times, one in the morning and one in the evening.
It's all of these times are available. I think we just thought perhaps clustering them made sense, but um, it's not, we don't have a scheduling problem. So if the will of the group is to do one on the 16th in the evening, at lunchtime on Monday or Tuesday, the 5th or the 6th, that would be fine too. Doesn't seem like anybody has strong preference.
No, I guess I don't feel very strongly about it, but maybe just do something in the evening on the 16th of December and then that afternoon I would probably think Monday. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then knowing that both times are very busy, get that locked and then start to promote it as soon as possible.
Sounds great. Okay, January 5th at lunch and December 16th in the evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I guess my last question is 5:30 the evening? I mean, should it be like 6? Will people like get time to
That would
get
be fine
home?
with us.
I
I don't
just
actually know. We normally do them at 6. Like this, we have one next Monday for the Riz and it's at 6. So I'm not sure why it's 5:30, but 6 is it seems like a better time too. I would agree. 5:30 just feels like a very long work day. You just stay at the office so okay, we'll note that and move it to 6. Jared, go ahead.
Thanks, Jane. Um, I am flexible and happy to go with whatever folks think, and apologies for being contrarian, but just to put a different viewpoint out there on the 5th versus the 6th, since that, will be the Monday, I believe, after New Year's, and many folks take that kind of New Year's time off. I'm just wondering if sometimes there's a challenge with people being able to join something from the first Monday right back from a break. And I wonder if there's also um, a, a benefit of scheduling them both on Tuesdays. I think sometimes it's better to have, them on different days in case people have recurring conflicts. But since they're at different times, just to and perhaps if it was on Tuesday the 6th rather than Monday the 5th, it would enable kind of a reminder the day before, whereas a reminder before the one on the 5th, I think would be a little bit difficult. So I don't have a really strong preference, but just thinking about that time, I think the 6th would probably work better than the 5th.
Came to mind for me also when we were picking the dates, so I wouldn't say you were alone in thinking about that. So unless anybody has a problem, we can monitor the first day of the legislature quickly and just ensure it's that Wednesday and not Tuesday. And if that's the case, we can hold it on Tuesday at lunch instead of Monday. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Okay, the other main goal of today was just to check in. We have not, unless Liz, you received any at the 11th hour, we have not received any additional comments on the Climate Action Plan summary document, which has been had been shared with you all once, and we did incorporate your edits the first time around. This is intended to be red line edits. So this is intended to now go back to the designer and be finalized. But we wanted to ensure this is your document as a climate council. This is the summary document that I would imagine the majority of Vermonters will read over the entire climate action plan. So really want to do a pulse check, make sure it's hitting the mark with all of you, and see if there's any concerns or last minute sort of edits or catches. And I believe Charlotte's here taking notes, which is excellent. So we'll capture your edits and then share it with the contractor by the end of today, I believe is our deadline. So thank you. Jared, go ahead. And if it would help, I have it open, I can pull it up. We
Thanks,
can start with
Jane.
comments.
First, overall, I think that this is a really good distillation and summary. I think it reads clearly um, and lifts up things well. I did notice one thing on page 3 that I thought was missing a key phrase, and it relates to the transportation summary in terms of the recommendation on a cap and invest program. And as a council, we had talked about a focus on any cap and invest program being equity and affordability focused in two ways. One is on the investments made in climate action, but there was also a commitment to providing direct payments or rebates to lower middle income Vermonters, and that didn't show up there. So I just wanted to suggest changing that last line of the transportation summary to read like that. I just put it in the chat. Um, and it really just adds that piece in. So it would be when one becomes viable, same language is there, join a cap and invest program, which would work by placing a declining cap on greenhouse gas emissions and using the proceeds to provide direct payments to lower and middle income Vermonters and invest in equitable climate action. I just want to make sure both of those pieces get captured as part of our recommendation.
Any objections to that addition? Seems reasonable to me.
I mean, I just want to flag, I think the challenge with that statement all along then is the fact that we don't acknowledge that 2030 isn't achievable. And to the extent we start to return payments or committing to return payments to Vermonters, I wonder if there's just a way to soften that. Just like that, those are certainly both possible uses we've talked about, but I feel like this was part of the challenge in a lot of the language and like the deep, dark, big pieces of the climate action plan, and in that it tries to say that there's sufficient money to do all of these things, and I just worry that it sort of creates this idea that there's a panacea here, and that where we can achieve the requirements of the Global Warming Solutions Act and return money to invest to low and moderate income Vermonters. And I need to sit with it for a minute, and maybe Jane, if you have other pieces you want to walk through, I will try to come up with a suggested friendly amendment here. But I do think that this, absent some additional context, would be concerned about that edit.
If I
Just-
can,
Yeah, please go ahead, Jared.
I just want to, and I'll paste it in here. I'm not trying to do anything different or anything new than what we've already agreed on. So here is the language from the priority recommendation, and it talks about two uses of the revenues. So I'm just trying to make sure that both of those recommendations that we agreed on in the cap that we passed as the priority recommendations show up. Right now, it just talks about investments being used for climate action, and it doesn't reference that first part in terms of direct payments or rebates. So I just want to be clear,
Appreciate that,
this isn't
Jared.
something new.
Yeah, no, I know, I agree.
Yeah, I scrolled up to the top, not with an actual suggestion, but trying to understand, Julie, where and how the language that you, Jared, and others worked very hard on for the context to the priority actions and the language around sort of the context of this plan and the ability to do everything, how that is put in, understanding that the cap and invest is just one recommendation, and in large part, there's a challenge with all of the recommendations adding up to 2030 at this juncture. But I can't see. I don't have a suggestion yet either. Liz, just noting I responded in the chat, but appreciate the catches in the comments, and we took note of that to make those edits.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Joey, for yours too.
It's super minor, but I would, if to the degree we can, to what Jared's pointing to, I agree it would be important. So adding something along those lines, and then these minor suggestions. Then I also just one other question thought, but I don't want to pivot us away if we're not done.
I think the secretary's thinking, unless you have a comment now,
Julie,
Julie.
if you could scroll back up to that preceding page. And maybe it's that sentence that I'm struggling with towards in the middle of the first paragraph that says it identifies how we can reduce climate pollution to levels that meet the legal commitments established in the Global Warming Solutions Act. I don't know that we can say that and as well as the returning a portion of the proceeds to Vermonters. Like, I think the modeling showed that's not, it may not be possible regardless, but it's certainly not possible if we return funding, correct?
I mean,
Is that,
my
well, go ahead, Jared.
I'm sorry, my read of that analysis is that it was just on the cap and invest portion. If we were only relying on cap and invest as our only pollution reduction strategy, and that there are other complementary policies that would also contribute towards emissions reduction. And so, you know, my understanding was that we did not have comprehensive modeling ready for the cap in terms of how all the recommendations would add up in terms of pathways to 2030 and beyond. So, you know, I think that it's probably best to say that the recommendations are intended to work to achieve
Yeah.
those commitments. But
I think that softening, Jared, would be helpful to me. The word can is maybe what I'm stuck on.
uh-huh.
So it like in the sentence, Julie, where it says how we can reduce climate pollution reduction levels that that are intended to meet.
Endeavor to meet or something. I mean, it's just that I think that statement is too strong. And with that, then I think I'm all right with the rest of what's been proposed there.
Jane, I have a Word doc up. Would it be helpful to share my screen with it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yep.
For as long as Charlotte captured endeavor to meet in that middle paragraph on the first page, I think we're all set. Charlotte did. Of course she did. Great. Joey, while Liz works to drop in the other edit, please go ahead, and if you had a different comment, it sounds like we likely have agreement here.
Yeah. I mean, my comment was just, well, first starting with, I think this is really important. Glad to have a summary document. Very much appreciate the work here. One of the questions I have or thoughts occurred to me, like when reading this, is if people just generally turn to this and are not thinking about this all the time, I do feel like maybe in that very same paragraph where we were just at, I just wonder, it feels like important to talk about reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which are creating, which are driving climate change, to make the link for people that, I mean, we're proposing to reduce greenhouse gas emissions because that's the very thing that is accelerating the change and driving the need for resilience investments. And we're answering the question of why a little bit. I don't think that, like I just don't want to assume that people, I think we need to make that connection in a summary document somewhere and in some way. And it could be in that paragraph. What's more, it identifies how we can reduce, you could say greenhouse gas emissions that are, driving climate change to levels that meet the requirements or whatever, GWSA. I feel like that seems important to make
Yeah.
that connection for people.
Yeah, so that middle paragraph there, Liz. So, nope, sorry, the first paragraph. So, establishment that endeavor to meet. So, fourth sentence down in the first paragraph would be where Julie's comment goes.
Sorry, I was working on other edits while Julie provided that comment.
Yeah, so in that first paragraph under what is
Yeah.
the Vermont, it's the fourth sentence down, and it
Okay.
says to levels that endeavor to meet the legal commitment.
Okay. Oh, got it.
And then, I can't quite. It would be a very long sentence if we added it right there, Joey. So I'm trying to understand. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying. Maybe there's just a comment there. Put in, Liz, and you and I, we just try to work on adding, and I know we make this connection in opening and intros and the executive summary in the plan itself. So just looking for a sentence to pull in that where we draw the connection between the pollution reduction levels and an effort to slow the impacts of global warming solution, the climate change. Sorry, we can do that.
Yeah, and I don't,
Okay.
I trust you. I don't need to wordsmith it here. I just think somewhere up in the top of the document, that would be important. And I know we do that elsewhere. Thank you.
Jared, go ahead.
Sorry, I think that sentence would read more clearly if the endeavor to went before reduce climate pollution. So it would be what's more, it identifies how we can endeavor to reduce climate pollution to levels that meet. If that's a friendly amendment, I think it just reads more clearly than having it after levels. And I'm sorry, I noticed one other thing on which I think is minor but worth capturing before this moves forward, which would be on pages 5 and 6. There's a list of the individuals and groups and organizations that contributed to the CAP's creation. And it doesn't list climate counselors. It does say climate council subcommittees. Or the climate council. I don't know if this is meant to be like broad groups, but because the subcommittees involve folks who aren't counselors, and much of the priority recommendations was a primarily council exercise, I think we should add in the Vermont Climate Council, or if it's, this kind of goes between individuals and groups. But I think either climate counselors or the climate council should be in that list somewhere.
Oh, on the list. Yeah, thank you.
Of who wrote the plan.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I'm reading the first paragraph and I'm like, oh, it says the Climate Council, but now I see what you mean. Yeah.
So maybe above climate council subcommittees, I just put the climate council.
I think it should just be the Climate Council first.
Okay, before the public. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually think the public should probably, unless people have a problem, I should go lower.
Yeah. I mean, I think public comment and feedback certainly informed the plan, but if we're saying who wrote, I mean, I guess it
Yeah, it's
says
a little,
contributed to it, but it would feel a little disingenuous to say that, to put the public first when most of the authors who were incorporating public feedback, but most of the authors were counselors, subcommittee members, or state staff.
For consideration, you could just have it say climate counselors and subcommittee members all on one line. And you could do the same with consultants, which stands out a little odd on its own. It could be climate action office staff and consultants, since you all did do the contracts.
I would echo those recommendations. It's good changes.
those are good changes. Yes. Great. Any other concerns or comments at this point? Those are all great improvements. Okay, not hearing any. Our goal, and I'm remembering now, I'm sorry, I'm actually remembering now that we're in this document, our rationale not only behind waiting till December 16th and not having as many dates in December and then January was that we wanted to have this finalized and graphically designed and available for the public meetings. And so we had looked at earlier weeks in December, and it wasn't schedules. It was actually the fact that we wanted to be able to turn people to this document. And so decided to hold proposing our public meetings till December 16th, which is when we'll have this back and finalized. So all good on our dates, and glad that we'll have this and a clean version of this ready to go so we can share it with the public then. I knew there was a reason, just can't remember on a Monday morning. Okay, we have a climate council meeting in December. We have another steering committee meeting already scheduled for you all to discuss that agenda. So I think that's all we needed to do and accomplish today. I'll encourage you all to come to a resilience implementation strategy public event. We have one Thursday at lunch and next Monday evening. And besides that, any other comments or I don't see any members of the public, but also happy to pause and hear any last thoughts from any of you or anyone else watching the meeting today.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Happy Monday. Thanks for being available bright and early. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye now.